Bands and musicians have traveled America's back roads for decades, entertaining those who sit on bar stools along the way. Tonight, we introduce you to America's bands and musicians right here in Central Illinois. This is Clubhouse Lounge Radio's Backroads N Barstools.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Backroads N Barstools on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. I'm your host, Keith Gibson, and along with me today is my special guest, Perry Dable of the Perry Dable Experience. And Perry, welcome to the Clubhouse Lounge Radio studios, and welcome to Clubhouse Lounge Radio.
I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, yeah, we've known each other for a long time, close to probably 15 years, and we've done some radio together and some shows, and now I'm happy to sit down and talk to you as my guest and talk a little music.
Yeah, in the past it was always football, but
It was, yeah.
Now we'll talk about something I'm more involved with nowadays.
Yeah, that's right, you are, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But let's talk about how you got started in music, because you've been involved for a long time, man.
I mean, I've been a music lover my whole life, but growing up as a kid, just loved music. Wasn't really a musician per se back then, but my first band was in like 6th grade with a couple buddies that I went to school with at Homer, Darren Staten and Ken Lacey, who most people will know as Ken J, the drummer for Static X.
Oh, there you go.
And so we had a band with one singer and 2 drummers. And so it really wasn't a band, but that's what we called it. But so that's probably my earliest days. And then my first actual delving into being a part of a band was actually with Ken before he made it big with Static X. When he was still living around here, we had a kind of you call it a garage band or a basement band where we were trying to, do 80s hair metal covers.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, probably early 80s, like 84, 85, right after I got out of high school. And we did that for 3 or 4 months. And then, of course, Ken moved on to bigger and better things. And I ended up going off to school to play baseball and kind of forgot music for a while. And it was my son that brought me back to it pretty much.
So you're back to it. You've been back to it for how long now?
It's probably been about close to 15 years, I would say, since we got back into it, something like that.
And you said your son brought you back into it, and Zach, your son.
Yes.
Very talented in his own right as well.
Takes after his mama.
I always give credit to my wife, too, so I completely understand that. But what kind of brought you guys together to get you back in the swing of things?
Well, he started playing guitar. I mean, if you've seen Zach play, and obviously I'm biased being his father, but if you've seen him play, he's an incredible guitar player. And he was just one of those kids that early on, I think he started knocking on our door when he was 4 years old saying, "Mom and Dad, I want to play guitar." I mean, it wasn't, "I want to play an instrument." He knew exactly what he wanted to play. Well, my wife's a band director, so obviously she knows a whole lot about the music industry and how to teach kids and what they should do and not do. And she kept thinking, this might be a little early for him. He's only 4. So she kind of put him off, 9 months to a year, and he was still clamoring. So finally she said, "Okay, I think he's really serious about it. He's not one of those kids that's going to jump in and play for 6 months and throw the guitar in the corner and never play it again." So we broke down. So he played for years, and I had a little garage band with a couple buddies of mine. One of the ones I mentioned who I was in a band with in 6th grade. He had moved back from Ohio, and he and I and a guy named Tim Kirby from Fairmount and Chris Nargelius from Fairmount, which your buddy Mike Nargelius' brother.
Yeah.
We were just jamming in the garage, just having fun, playing covers of different stuff. And we would play out once in a blue moon, but it was really just more of a fun thing. And then Zach came home one day, and he said, "Dad, come here." He was like 15, 14. And so we went in the garage. He said, "I want you to learn this song with me." And then it was on a Wednesday because Mom was at choir practice. So when she got home from choir practice that night, he said, "Mom, get your bass out, and you need to learn this song." Well, she didn't even really play the bass. But, music teachers usually can figure out how to do things pretty quickly.
Right.
So she said, okay. So she learned to play the bass, and the next thing you know, we started playing some music. And then Zach said, "I think I'm ready to start a band." And so that's what really brought me back into it, was playing with him.
What song was that you guys all had to learn?
Believe it or not, there was a couple of them, but I think it was Marie's the Name, an old Elvis song. And the reason Zach knew that is not because I'm an Elvis fan, nothing against the King, but the Scorpions are one of my favorite bands. And on one of their later albums that came out in the 2000s, it's got one of those hidden tracks where it's not listed on the liner notes, but if you let it play past the last song, all of a sudden they come in with their version of Marie's the Name, which was obviously a much more rocking version than was done by Elvis back in the day. But so that was the first song, and then I think we picked up "My Sweet Lord" by George Harrison, because we were going to do that for our church, and it just kind of grew from there and became the Zach Dable Experience.
and you guys then start playing together. How did you mentor Zach, and how did it spark your fire to kind of do what you're doing now and getting out there and getting back on stage and getting everything going for him?
Well, and you've got kids. Of course, I think your kids are a little bit younger, but
Tad bit.
I think, you always want to, most people want to excel at whatever they do. And I always wanted to be a singer, but as a parent, you're even more excited to see your kids excel. There's so much more to that than yourself. You're just watching your kids grow and you're so proud, and you just want to see them be the best they can be. And I just think Zach playing, and he was very good very early on, and it's just like, I get to share the stage with my son. I can't go on play an actual basketball game with him. I can't play a baseball game with him. I can coach him and stuff, which I did growing up, but it's not the same thing. But when you're on the stage with your son and you turn over and watch him play a guitar solo, there's something really special about that.
And that just gives you chills a little bit,
it
too.
It does.
Man.
I mean, I still get even though I'm not in the truck topper band at all, I'm part of it with helping out behind the scenes. I just, there's certain songs I'm going to walk up from the merch table and I'll walk up to the stage because I know there's going to be a guitar solo that's going to be worth seeing. So
that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about writing, because I know Zach does a little writing too, and for the truck toppers, and Colton Taylor and you guys all got it together with Zach, and they're putting out some great music right now too, man.
Yeah, I mean, Colton, he does the bulk of the songwriting, and I mean, he does a nice job of the songs he's putting. We've got, I say we loosely, obviously, because as I said, I help them out as their manager. I'm their whatever you need me to do guy. If you need me to sell merch, you need me to haul merch, you need me to haul equipment, you need me to set up, tear down equipment, I'm going to do it for you. You need me to book some gigs, you need me to handle the money, I'm just whatever you need me to be. That way you guys can focus on the music, which is the key thing. So,
right.
But now I've lost myself talking so much on what you were asking me.
About
the writing. So Colton does
writing, yeah.
Colton does a bulk of that, and his songs are great. I mean, they've got probably, I know Zach's coming back next week, get in the studio and lay down some guitar solos for a couple songs that are not too far away from being ready to go out, and there's probably 3, 4, 5 more that they really need to put down and get out because they just written some good stuff. But Colton does, and Colton might correct me, Zach might correct me on this, but the way I understand it is Colton will start and come up with a base of a song, and then he'll send stuff down to Zach and say, hey, here's what I've got. And then Zach just has a really great mind for theory and how things should go, and to take a very simple song and add a bridge or, add some different parts to make the song a little more involved than just a basic, sometimes a basic simple song is all you need.
Right.
But he, adds more depth to the song, I guess. So that's how they kind of do it. And
there's a lot of times people don't realize how much depth there is into a song. We talked last week with the guys from Bordertown and Company about how putting a song together, and they're trying to write a lot of their stuff too.
Right.
And when you go in that studio, it's just not everybody gathers together and we sit around and play and record and there it is. There's so much in depth that the average listener to a song on the radio doesn't realize how much work actually goes into it.
And we talk about depth of a song, and again, not all songs have to be that way. You have some really simple songs that are considered some of the best songs ever written.
Right,
but,
the hokey pokey.
But, you go back to Zach, as you I'm sure know, was in that rock band called The Hangovers.
Right, yeah.
And their stuff was not simplistic at all. In fact, I know my friend Ken from Static X, he'd come out and hear him a couple times because I wanted him to hear him and kind of get a professional's opinion on what he was thinking.
Right.
And he was telling me, he said, they're almost more like a prog type band in the way they write their songs because there's so much going on. He compared it. They opened for a band called Eva Under Fire at the Canopy Club, and Ken was there, and he was contrasting the styles. He said, well, if you see Eva Under Fire, they have a formula, boom, 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 they stick to it. And you listen to the Hangovers, and he said, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just different. They're, the songs just, and that's Zach. He doesn't want things to be too simple. That's his imprint on a song, is I want it to have bridges, I want it to have different places, and because you don't want it to be one of those songs, I don't know how many songs have you heard where you heard the beginning of the song, and it's like, hey, this sounds like it's pretty good. And then 3 minutes, and then 3 minutes later, it's not taken off, and you say, this song never went anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I know that's what Zach, when he gets involved with Colton, is they want to make sure that song goes somewhere.
Yeah, and they're doing a great job. They just released another song last week They had Neon Glow come out, and so those guys are on the road going a few places. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk to Perry a little bit more and talk about some of the gigs he's played and some of his favorite places to play. You're listening to Backroads N Barstools on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Are you tired of paying high prices for radio advertising? Well, you're in luck. Clubhouse Lounge Radio is for you, the people and small businesses of Central Illinois. Contact me, Keith Gibson, owner and operator, to find out how you can get the most bang for your buck by advertising on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Call me at 217-722-3311 or send me an email at clubhouseloungeradio@gmail.com. Making small business, big business for you at a minimal price. Now back to the music on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Back here on Backroads N Barstools, I'm Keith Gibson, your host with the mostest, and joining me today is my special guest, Perry Dable, from the Perry Dable Experience. And Perry, thanks for joining us. You've got a long lineage from you and now your son. You're still involved in the music business. And as we said earlier, we've known each other for a while, but you've got to play some pretty cool gigs too yourself, Dad, haven't you?
Oh, probably some decent ones. We started out with Utter Chaos. That was my first band with the guys I told you about. Was more of a garage band, but
right.
We played at the Iron Post, and we played at the Legion there in Catlin a couple times, and played over at the Moose Lodge when it still existed in Danville. And
that's one of my favorite places was the Moose Lodge. I used to bring my parents up because I lived in Oakwood for so long. That's one of our favorite place to go, and now it's even bigger and better.
Yeah,
they've done great things there at the Exit 210.
Absolutely, but yeah. So I mean that's where I started out playing, and I guess I'd say that's where I cut my teeth because we would rehearse in my garage, and my wife, being a music teacher, she would hear the whole rehearsal, and so sometimes I'd walk in after rehearsal and she'd say, Perry, and I'd say, yeah, you know that last song you were doing? Yeah, don't ever sing that in public. I said, really? Was it that bad? She said, yeah, it's not there. And that was my learning to be a singer. And I'm not sitting here telling you today that I'm this greatest singer, but I told somebody this the other day. They were asking about singing. I said, yeah, growing up as a kid, I always just thought you were either born to be able to sing,
right,
or you weren't. But that's not really true. You can take a person who's not the greatest singer, or even if they're a good singer, with practice and confidence and all the things wrapped up, you can see tremendous growth. And so I think that's where I learned to sing, was with that band, and it evolved during my decade with the Zach Dable Experience, which was the band Zach started with me and his mom and then some friends. And now I sing a little bit with one band. It's called Hot Country Nights. I'm a big lover of 90s country, and I always had this thought that I wanted to do a 90s country cover band at some point in my lifetime. And when the Zach Dable Experience kind of said, okay, it's time for us to go away, I thought, okay, here's my chance. And so I jumped on that and got with a couple guys. And everybody that's in our band pretty much is in another band, so it's just kind of a side project.
Are you having fun with it, though?
It's fun, yeah. I mean, you're getting to sing those 90s songs, Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and Clint Black and all
that's great music.
The music that I just love. I mean, I listen to new country too. Mostly it's more Cody Jinks and not necessarily radio country, but that's still my favorite era of country.
Mine too, man. I love 90s country, and there's the lyrics of that era, if you will, is awesome. And so I don't blame you wanting to sing that.
Yeah, we were just blitzed with a bunch of good artists all at one time.
We were.
With, Mark Chestnut and Tracy Bird and Tracy Lawrence, and just all those guys came out
Billy
about
Ray.
the same time. Billy Ray Cyrus. People want to say, oh, Achy Breaky Heart, it's cheesy. It is cheesy as heck, no doubt about it.
It made him a lot of money, though.
But he's got other songs that are really good. I go back and listen to his catalog sometimes. It's like, yeah, he wasn't a one-trick pony. He had some other stuff. So,
what's some of the favorite songs you like to sing, though, when you're up there on stage?
I'll tell you one of my, and I did sing with the Truck Toppers for a little bit, and we can talk more about that later, but we did Simple Man. And even when I was in the band, Colton eventually took over the load of singing, which was the plan kind of all along. But there were still a few Southern rock songs that I would sing, and that's one I really love. I really love to sing in my 90s, in the Hot Country Nights, Red Aiken's That Ain't My Truck. I don't know, something about that song that... and it might be because I remember singing it in the shower years ago, and my wife telling me it didn't sound very good. And it's like, by God, I'm going to learn to sing that song to where I can sing it in public and not embarrass myself. And so I finally got there, I guess, because the band hasn't kicked that out of the set list yet. So.
Well, the good news is you have sounds like a loving wife who's just like mine and will be blunt and honest when something's not good. If she, if I have a project or if I'm working on something or design and I say, hey, take a look at this. And she's like, no. Oh, okay. Well, at least you're honest.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're in her bailiwick, She
Right.
obviously, like I said, she was a great musician in her own right. She played the flute growing up. She was always the best in Vermilion County, and she was first chair at EIU, and so she's always been a super talented musician at whatever she's done. So obviously, you don't turn a deaf ear to what she's saying because she knows what she's talking about.
What's some other places you've played that you really enjoyed? Like, it may not have had the biggest crowd or anything like that, but you just enjoy playing there for the atmosphere.
I got to give props to a couple places that were early in my career that, on the outside you might say, oh, they're just bars. But there was something special about the people, the owners, just all of it. And that would be the Sydney Saloon. Eddie and Linda owned it at the time we started playing. And, when you're first starting out as a band, it's pretty hard to get gigs.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who you are because you're a new band. So they don't really have much to go on. It's like, oh, yeah, I hear they played there or they played there. And you don't really have a connect if you don't know somebody. And it's like, God, you got to get a foot in the door. So you hope you know somebody that knows somebody that can maybe put in a word for you. But they were always good to us. And then Tim Reardon up at Lola's, man, when we first started playing, it was like almost we became the house band for those two bars, playing quite, not in the traditional sense of playing every Saturday night, but we played there at both places a lot. Had great crowds. The owners and ownership and workers were all great to us, and it was just, great atmosphere. So those are two of the places I know.
And it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I know one of the later places that's really awesome, too, is the 210. I mean, they just, with what they've put into there, both their indoor and outdoor, you got a top-notch guy in Emory running sound, so you don't have to come and set up a PA system and tear it down. You don't have to worry about, okay, Zach is our sound guy when we run sound because that's what he went to school for at Milliken, so he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't want to have to run sound and try and play lead guitar and sing at the same time. He just wants to focus on playing. So you go to the 210, man, the setup's just, you couldn't ask for a better setup.
And no, you can't. And what they've turned the old Moose from now into over there with the giant stage and the outdoor patio and just the inside, it's beautiful. You've got food. It's a great place over there. And really a destination for a lot of bigger bands that are coming because they have the facilities to allow that for the bigger crowds too.
Yeah, and they do a good draw there. I know our last show there, when I went in and to get paid after the show and was talking to them, and the Hot Country Nights got to play there, and we were on the big stage, and it's like, man, you got all this room to move around, and I feel like Will Ferrell in the racing show that he did, where
what he didn't know what to do with his hands.
Yeah, what do I do with my hands? Sometimes when you're in a tight, sometimes in especially in smaller bars, you're all packed into a corner, and you can't move, so it's almost like you're shoulder to shoulder. And what do you do with your hands? Because if you lift it, you're going to bump the guy next to you or hit the guitar neck or something. So you're just standing there with your hand on your thigh, just, okay, don't move that arm. Man, when you're at the 210 with the size of the stage, I can actually get out and move around, and I don't want to say dance because that would be an ugly word for what I do, but I like to move when I'm singing. You like to kind of get into the show and just enjoy it, and it lends itself to that for sure.
Let's talk about a little bit more music outside of what you do. You're big music guy. You always have been. But what's something, you mentioned Cody Jinks earlier. What's some other stuff you really like right now? And where do you see the industry going?
Well, we were talking about that last night. Me and somebody else were talking about the big change with the record companies not necessarily dictating everything that goes on in the industry. I mean, they still do run radio. You know, if you're not on a label or something, you're probably not going to get I mean, I don't hear Cody Jinks on the radio up here. I remember we took a tour with the Hangovers that we talked about earlier, Zach's old band, and they went down through the South and the Mid-South, and we were into Texas before you'd hear Cody Jinks on the radio, and I'm thinking, man, this guy's selling out stadiums everywhere. You talk to people, and everybody talks about Cody Jinks, but yet you can't get on Wixie Radio.
Nope, but you know where he is on, Perry? Clubhouse Lounge Radio.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the big change is you don't have to be on mainstream radio. You don't have to be signed to a record company. And I just see more and more of that happening, to answer your question. I just see more and more bands saying, you know what, we can do it on our own. We don't have to rely on a label to push our stuff. And, you know, because in talking to people who are in the industry that know a whole heck of a lot more about that than I do, they talk about how pretty much, and it's always been this way, but to say it's even worse now, is that if you sign a contract with a record company, it is all record company friendly, and it's not artist friendly at all.
Correct.
And so, you know, artists are focusing on, let's tour, let's sell merchandise and make our money that way. And, you know, we know with streaming that, you know, you're not going to sell CDs and albums like they used to do, you know, 50 years ago or 40 years ago, but we'll just have to find another way to do it. But that's the way I see it going.
That's really changed the game a lot in the last 10 years. It's been the streaming of music and the, you know, you got Spotify, you got YouTube Music, you've got Pandora. A lot of these places, especially Spotify, where guys like, you know, Colton Taylor and Truck Toppers can get their stuff out there and get new songs and then get hit after hit after hit. It's amazing where you can get your music now, but then you get in the car and it's not there.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem I see right now with the industry is these guys are still having trouble getting their music out there because of that. And a point was brought up last week with the guys from Bordertown Company, and it was a good point, and it still sticks with me, was Nashville is now the L.A. that it was in the 80s. So Nashville is, and I was like, I never thought of it that way, but it really is. It's more mainstream than what it was 10 to 15 years ago. So, yeah. Where do you see it going from here, though? Where do you think we go from here?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things, and you talked about things I liked and didn't like, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but one of the things that's kind of off-putting to me is the plethora of tribute bands that are out there. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but when you look at a venue, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but you look at certain venues, and it's like, and not even venues around here. I'm on Facebook all the time trying to find places where like the Truck Toppers would be good to play and different things. So I'm seeing venues from all across the Midwest, and you'll see, here's our next 5 concerts. An Iron Maiden tribute band, an AC/DC tribute band, a Tom Petty tribute band, a Pink Floyd tribute band. It's like, I like music by most of those artists, and I'm sure that I would enjoy some of the shows, especially the guys that really do it right.
Right.
But where's the support that I saw coming up as a late teenager, early 20-something guy for those up-and-coming acts that are going out there and playing their own music? That's you know, that's what I'm not seeing or hearing, and that's got to grow somehow.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, and that's why my focus is doing that, because I see the same thing, and I agree with you. Instead of giving one of these tribute bands a spot, why not give somebody like the Truck Toppers a spot? Or, you know, you got guys like Catlin and Company, Bordertown, these local bands who are trying to make it, put them on the bill. You know, it's probably going to cost you a lot less money, too, to have them, and it helps grow their following. So, yeah, great points there, Perry. We're going to take a quick break and come right back here in just a minute and then talk to Perry about Colton Taylor and the Truck Toppers and what they have coming up, what they have coming out, and where you can find them. And then who knows where the conversation goes, because we might get a little bit of sports, too. All right, you're listening to Backroads N Barstools on Clubhouse Lounge Radio.
Hey, Loungers, it's Keith Gibson here at Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to our local musicians who have sent in their music to be put into rotation on the station 24/7. We like to put those in rotation as often as possible so we can get the most airtime for them. So when you go out to one of our famous dive bars and listen to little guitars, you're going to hear that music that you hear right here on the station. And if you're a local musician who has some recorded tracks and you want them in rotation, send them our way at clubhouselaungeradio@gmail.com or shoot us a message right on our social media channels. We'd be happy to get it in all genres because we are the home for variety and getting all of our Central Illinois musicians in rotation, giving them an outlet for everyone and their fans to hear their music. You're listening to Clubhouse Lounge Radio at chlradio.com.
Welcome back to Backroads N Barstools here on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Keith Gibson with you today, and my special guest, Perry Dable from the Perry Dable Experience, also helps run Colton Taylor and the Truck Toppers. And let's talk about the Truck Toppers. We've got a couple new songs out, and they have been busy. They just, last weekend, did Sydney Fun Days. Where are we going from here?
Yeah, I think it's just up from here. Sometimes you get a bit antsy and you want things to happen faster than what they do. But when I step back and look, it's been pretty much 2 years and a couple months since the Truck Toppers actually was formed, and the band has really taken off. And I mean, this summer has been basically the summer of festivals. We've played a lot. Not that we don't enjoy the bar gigs that we've played, but we've played a lot less of those because we picked up so many festivals, and we actually had to turn down a handful of festivals because of conflicts with dates we already had, or it was too close to another date, and you don't want to play. You don't want to play the Ogden Festival and play another festival 5 or 10 minutes away the next week.
Right.
You try and spread it apart because you want to attract as many people to those shows as you can too, and sometimes you can overwhelm the public with too much of a good thing.
That's got to be a good feeling, though, is knowing that you're wanted and able to turn down gigs because you're so busy, and that means you're putting out good music, man.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a great following. I mean, like you talked about just the other night, we closed out Sydney Fun Days on Saturday night, and I was at the merch table, and where Sydney Fun Days people wanted us to set up the merch table was outside of the beer tent, away from everything, which was fine, but I wasn't up front seeing everything going on. So there was occasions where I'm going to go walk inside the tent and see what's going on. Man, people were in there partying and dancing, and I mean, it was, it's great to see that because that's what you're hoping for. And I talked to the band members afterwards. They said, "Oh yeah, it's awesome to be on stage when people are out there partying in the crowd like that."
Right.
And they were having a big time. And we've seen that the last couple shows. On the big show they played before that was the Gifford Festival. And man, Gifford put on a huge production. They brought it out. They did not leave anything undone when it came to sound and lights and the whole production. It was phenomenal, and the street was packed up there, and people were having a big time. And in fact, if you look at the Good Time Bad cover art, it came from a picture that was taken at that show. The band had hired a company that Zach has worked with over the years to take photos and videos, and they came out and took a bunch of pictures. And one of the pictures they took from behind the stage was kind of the back of Colton, and then the crowd off to the left of him, all down the street there at Gifford.
That's awesome.
And that became the cover art for Good Time Bad. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice when when you start out as a band, you're not begging for shows, but you're having to call and ask because, again,
right.
People don't know who you are. But now the tables have turned, and it's really nice where people are reaching out to us. And we really wanted to try this year to become more of a regional band than just an area band, and that has happened. I kept telling you talk about living in Florida at one point in your life.
Right. Yeah,
I lived a number of years in Olney.
Right.
And
you were a white squirrel.
Well, I wasn't one. I was just a squirrel, but some will tell you that. But that area is where my wife and I were first married, so our formative years as true adults were down in southern Illinois. We lived in Olney and Albion, the two counties next to each other.
Right, yeah.
And those people loved their parties and their music down there. I mean, that was,
yeah.
I always tell people, they say, what was it like living down there? I said, well, if you ever listen to that Tim McGraw song, Country Boys and Girls Getting Down on the Farm, I said, that's true.
That's pretty much it. You are correct.
We'd have, you'd have a phone chain where your friend would call you up and say, hey, Perry and Jill, we're having a party at Joe's barn, and this band's playing, and it starts at 8, and it was a last-minute thing, and the next you'd pull out there, and there'd be 50 pickup trucks with people sitting in the back drinking beer and somebody outside playing music, and they just came and went as they wanted.
Roads lined up for as long as you could see.
And that was so fantastic, and I mean, the people were huge supporters, and it was largely country music. You still had some of your headbangers down there, but country was kind of, I told them, I said, we need to get regional, and I think where we really need to go is let's move south. Let's see if we can kind of start to encompass southern Illinois, and there maybe you can branch off to Evansville, get into southern Indiana, branch off to Missouri, branch off to Kentucky, and work our way towards Nashville and try and just not lock the region up, but become known in this region.
I tell you what, for the type of music the guys play, they are perfect for southern Illinois. And you hit it on the head, because I remember growing up the same type of way, You're a little older than me. Not much, but a little. And that's the type of thing we did, man. You sit in a barn, you sit out on the field, somebody starts playing some music, they bring their guitar. Next thing you know, you got a couple guys playing guitar. Or you get, hey, there's a party out here on Berryville Road. All right, we'll be there at 8 o'clock. And then, yeah, you just lined up. But they do play the perfect type of music for Southern Illinois. And since you're here, because a lot of people don't believe me up here in Central Illinois, it's a lot slower down in Southern Illinois.
It's a whole different way of life.
It is.
I still have one of my very best friends. So what originally took us down to Southern Illinois is when I got out of high school, I took a year off and I went to Parkland and just trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do.
Right.
And I got a chance to go play baseball at Albany Central College.
That's where I went.
So I went to Albany, played baseball for 2 years.
Who'd you play for?
Played for Dennis Conley.
That's what I was going to guess. Yeah,
Dennis was there forever, just retired here recently, but Hall of Fame coach. But anyway, so we really liked Albany. And my wife's parents, they had been from Catlin originally, but due to a career change for my father-in-law, he ended up down in Newton working for a bank. So his family moved down there, and my wife was in college at the time, and she still had a little brother that was at home. He went to Newton High School and all that. So they were involved down there in Newton, and we lived. So when I went up to Eastern after Albany Central and finished my college career, one of my old professors from Albany Central College had an opening and called me for a job in the newspaper business. So I went back to Albany, and Jill and I just fell in love with the place.
So you worked at the Daily Mail.
I was the editor of the Daily Mail at one time, and
I was a sports editor at the Advocate Press, which were owned by the same company.
So I'm sure you know Bruce Hickson.
Yeah.
Bruce was my sports writer at the time, and so yeah, I worked my way up from a reporter to assistant editor to editor, and the funny thing was I was supposed to become the publisher over at Flora, but if you remember, I think was it Jack Vertrees?
Jack Thatcher.
Jack was supposed to retire, but Jack would never retire.
Right,
he just loved it too much, and they kept saying, well, Jack's going to retire, and you probably take that job. And then Jack never retired, and then my mom got sick with cancer, and so we moved home to be closer to her because we knew she didn't have a lot of time, and that's how we ended up back here. But we always had a soft spot. We always said we'd move back to Albany in Southern Illinois. One of my best friends, him and his wife live on the lake down there, East Fork Lake.
Yeah.
And so we go down there, and what do? Backyard barbecues, time on the boat. You know, it's just laid back, fun stuff. And, you know, life moves a little slower down there. And, of course, we were into the horses. We were down. That's how we got into horses. All our friends were horse people. It was very unusual to drive by a house in the country and not see a horse in the pasture.
Correct.
In fact, we had a neighbor, and nicest people, but we always kind of joked that their truck and trailer rig was much nicer than the house they lived in because it was all about the horses for them.
Right. It's funny that we've known each other 15 years, and I didn't know that you worked at the Albany Daily Mail.
Yep. I think
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Right out of college, so I think it was I started like June, or I started 2 days. I graduated on a Saturday, started on a Monday.
That's crazy.
And my wife and I had just gotten married, and so we had like a 3-day honeymoon over the weekend because I didn't have any time since I just started the new job. So that was in '89, so like May of '89. I worked there until I was between there, and then there was a paper in Albion, which was a sister paper called the Albion Journal-Register, and they actually sent me down there, and I was able to run that paper and serve as publisher, and then I came back to Albany as the editor. So,
wow. Small world, man.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm glad you can say, hey, yes, it is a lot slower in Southern Illinois, because nobody believes me, but it is. I mean, my wife, when the first time I took her down there, she'd be like, why does everybody wave at everybody? I'm like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit more about truck toppers, though. Let's get back to that. Kind of a little off tangent there, but it's all right. I always like to talk about Southern Illinois.
But we were talking about, getting down to Southern Illinois. So I told him, I said, I think that's a place for us where we can get a following going. Mm-hmm. So we ended up, Zach does a lot of the bookings. I help with that, but only when they like I said earlier, I do whatever they need me to do. And so Zach's done a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So he reached out and we ended up getting, we watch where other artists play, and like Colton's played with a guy named Tony Logue before, and we noticed Tony had played down a couple times at a place called the old Log Cabin Tavern in Marion.
Yeah.
So we got a gig down there, and then we got a gig at a really cool place right in the middle of the Shawnee Forest called Shotgun Eddie's, just north of Eddyville. And it's a big outside stage venue, and people show up in their cars and their motorcycles and their horses and their buck wagons and listen to live music and eat food. And so we got those 2 gigs, and then all of a sudden we're getting calls for multiple festivals down in Southern Illinois. And I thought that this is what we needed. So we just actually, one of the nice gigs we just landed was this week. We're playing the Golconda Shrimp Festival right down the Ohio River.
Oh, boy.
In early September.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it should be a good one. So we're looking forward to that. And
that's a big festival down there.
we had to pass on a couple of other ones. One of the things we did when we were living down there was we would go into the Shawnee and ride horseback. Mm-hmm. And never did the big, like, river-to-river ride, but we had somebody reach out from the river-to-river ride this year and said, hey, we want you to come be entertainment one night. Well, Colton was already booked for an acoustic show at a wedding, so we had to pass on that. And then we got asked, we were reached out to by a festival in Cave and Rock, and so
that's awesome, man.
So things are starting to happen down there, and
That's awesome. Now you do have a big show coming up, though. State Fair, right?
Yep, and even before we get to the State Fair, but yeah, the State Fair will be cool. We're telling everybody that we're opening for Motley Crue.
Well, you are kind of.
Kind of. Different stage, different area, but we do play right before Motley Crue, and people say, you're opening for Motley Crue? That doesn't seem like, I'm just kidding. We're not really opening for Motley Crue, but we play right before Motley Crue takes the big stage in the grandstand at the State Fair, so we're just outside of the grandstand on a stage. They have multiple stages throughout the fairgrounds, but it'll be pretty cool, and I think the music will go over there good. But this coming weekend, on August 3rd, actually August 2nd, Zach and Colton are playing over at Boondocks with an acoustic representation of the group, opening for Jason Boland and the Stragglers.
Nice.
And then the next day, which is Royal Fun Days, kind of the same thing. We're playing, the Truck Toppers full band is playing for a couple hours, and then Jason Boland will take the stage and play for a couple hours after that. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, anytime you can get to play for a national act, and he's been around for a long time and has had some pretty decent success. You just hope maybe you make some connections there, and maybe somebody hears you that's there to see Jason or with Jason's group and says, hey, these guys are pretty good. Maybe I need to, see if we can help them out or hook them up with somebody who can help them out, kind of thing,
Right. You guys are great. I love Royal Fun Days. They have a special place in my heart too. And shout out to our friends up at Freeman's Tavern because they're good friends of ours. And they just reopened here not too long ago, and you got Little Rocks up there too, and it's always a great weekend up there at Royal Fun Day. So I'm happy for you guys, and I know what tent you're in, and if you're going to be in that tent before the crew goes on, you're going to have a crowd at State Fair, and because Lori and I like to go over there too, and it's a fun tent to play in, man, and there's people everywhere in and out, and you'll have a great crowd, so I'm looking forward to that.
That's what we're sure hoping. I know some of the band members are going to go see the crew afterwards, but
so I've seen Crew 6 times in my life. I've seen Poison 4 or 5 times, and I just don't want to take that prestige from one. I've seen them 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just want to hold on to those memories. But all right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to finish up with Perry here and finish up Backroads N Barstools this week. You're listening to Clubhouse Lounge Radio.
Do you want your business to have the naming rights to the Clubhouse Lounge Radio studio? Well, now you can. Reach out to me, Keith Gibson, owner and operator of Clubhouse Lounge Radio, at clubhouselaungeradio@gmail.com, or send me a message right on our social media channels. Own the naming rights to the Clubhouse Lounge Radio studio for only $100 a month. Now back to the music on Clubhouse Lounge Radio.
Closing up this session of Backroads N Barstools, I'm Keith Gibson with my special guest Perry Dable today. And Perry, thanks for joining us today. We've had a great time. Got to talk a little bit about the Truck Toppers, about your music. We've even got to talk about Southern Illinois, and that always brings a special place in my heart. Let's talk a little sports, though. You and I used to do high school football. How closely do you watch high school football now?
Well, not nearly as much. My wife retired from teaching. She's been 2 full years retired now. And, of course, she was the band director, so heavily tied in with football because of marching band and all, and even basketball with the pep band. So I would still go to a lot of the games and stuff. And but once she retired, different things have grabbed our attention and taken us away. So I don't follow it as much. I did actually, mainly music, and a little more fishing. But I did read the other day, I think the News Gazette had a little preview on Salt Fork, because that's, my hometown team, obviously. And they look like they're going to have a pretty good season. I think they ranked them 6th in the area preseason, and each year under their, Joe Hageman took over a few years ago for Plotner, and Joe's done things the right way, and his teams are slowly building up to, from that team that would get 5, 6 wins and just get in the playoffs to teams that win 7, 8 games and winning playoff games.
Right.
So, and it looks like they're maybe poised to take another step. So, I mean, that's might be the extent of it, because Colton Taylor, his little brother Coy, is like maybe the best wide receiver around. So I kind of follow St. Joe just to see how Coy does, because he's a good kid. And I was talking to him last night, actually, at the Sydney Fun Day show, and asking him if they were in full bore for. He said, "Yeah, we're really in football mode now," and asking him what his team looked like. And so,
we're 22 days away.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy from when everything gets started. And I still love it. I get excited every Friday night, no matter where I'm on the road to or who I'm watching or where I'm at. We cover Unity here on Clubhouse Lounge Radio every Friday night, but Man, high school football is so much fun. It's so pure. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, what's on the horizon? What's Perry going to do in the next month or so with the Truck Toppers? You got State Fair. That's a big show for you guys, right? In front of eyes who usually probably won't see you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and a lot of different bands get to play the State Fair, but I don't think you can undersell how cool it is to say, hey, I played the Illinois State Fair. And it doesn't really matter what stage you were on, but you played the State Fair, and that's, that's kind of cool. So certainly that's a big show, but like I said, the other festivals coming up. Got the Royal Days coming up, and then we're playing the Ogden Festival, which we played last year and went really well. That's on the 24th. Then we're playing not a festival, but it'll be a really cool show on that big stage at the 210 on Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's like a late after, because it's Labor Day. Everybody's off work Monday.
Yeah.
It's kind of a late afternoon, early evening show, so it's not one of those where you're playing 9 to midnight. You're playing.
That means I can go watch them play and still be in bed with my normal bedtime of 8:30.
And I know they're pretty jacked because we don't get to play on, again, we can't undersell how cool the setup is at the 210.
Right.
They went full bore and put on, it's just like playing, it's like you're a big band playing a big concert show. That's how nice their setup is with the PA, with the stage, with the lights, and everything sound man provided. It's just all, they've got it gated off, you don't want to keep all those fans from rushing the stage. And
right. You have that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, all the time. Well, I think Colton does, but
but
yeah,
both of us.
So we'll be playing there. That'll be really cool, just because it's the venue's cool. Like I said, Brad and Janet have been great to us since we started playing there with both our bands, and it's just become a great relationship there. And then going down to Golconda in September to play their Shrimp Festival, which will be really cool. And
so, where can everybody find the Truck Toppers at?
You can go to Facebook and just type in Colton Taylor Music. The Truck Toppers is the name of the band, but the band has decided that they want to push Colton's name out front, so everything is under Colton Taylor Music. And if you go there, you'll find out everything. You can get a link to the webpage where you can listen to their latest releases, see what shows are coming up, or on Facebook, because they put together events for all the different shows. So everything's right out there in those two links. And
yeah. And you can go to YouTube. You can find them on there, too. You can listen to the stuff there. So they're on Spotify, all your streaming places. Make sure you reach out. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard Colton Taylor and the Truck Toppers yet, make sure you tune in on right after this show. You can hear them. They'll be in rotation on our local music spotlight on Sunday nights from 7 to 10 p.m. right here on Clubhouse Lounge Radio. Perry, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy seeing you. You're a supporter of the show. You were a sponsor of ours for Summer Shakedown, too. So I thank you for that. Now I get to see you again personally. So
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. And Colton, and we wish you guys nothing but the best of luck. And we will keep dibs, and we'll keep pushing because and I love that you guys are getting to Southern Illinois. That makes my heart happy. So
yes, absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Perry Dable. Follow Colton Taylor and the Truck Toppers on Facebook. And you are listening to Clubhouse Lounge Radio's Backroads N Barstools. We'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for listening to Clubhouse Lounge Radio today and supporting the station. Whether you're at home, at work, or on the road, you can take Clubhouse Lounge Radio wherever you go, streaming 24/7 at chlradio.com and on our app. Hey, don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you follow us. And if you've got an event, an upcoming show, if you got a business special, make sure you join our Facebook group. That way you can post all of your stuff in there as well, so everybody knows and can help us grow the station as well. All right, back to the music now, right here on Clubhouse Lounge Radio.